Why did it have to be these two?
And normally I'm the emotional one. Welcome back to the James and Dame Show. I'm Josiah.
And I'm Will.
And today we're going to go over the conference championship weekend recap.
Yeah.
It was a long weekend. It was a very, very long weekend. But I guess we'll just start right away with the NFC just to get that ball rolling. So what was the thing that kind of stuck out to you this game? Because there was quite a bit, I'd say.
Yeah, there were some things that kind of stuck out, but I think the funniest thing is the refs forgetting they're not coaching or reffing the Chiefs game. They thought they were reffing the Chiefs game and then realized they weren't because they tried awarding points to the Eagles for several offsides penalties on several offsides penalties back to back while the Eagles are trying to tush push for a touchdown. And the refs were like, we have the right to award points. And it's just like, people are just laughing about how it's just like, oh yeah, they think they're, reffing they're calling the Chiefs game, trying to give a team points. And it's just,
Yeah, that was the weird one. I don't think anyone heard of that rule before or whatever it was. I don't even know if it was a rule.
I think from the things I have seen that they're not actually able to do that. They were mistaken, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That is a very niche rule, I guess, if it is one. So
it's a bit of an oddball, but it's something new that we've never seen before, so I'll take it. Let's see here. I think out of everyone on the Commanders, Jayden Daniels seemed to be the only one that wanted to win that game from what I've seen. I know effort-wise, Daniels at least was consistently trying the entire game.
No, so that was the thing that surprised me is if you look at the track record, very few rookie quarterbacks make a conference championship game.
Yes.
And when they do, I think the best performance prior to Jayden Daniels, would probably...
Is it Joe Flacco?
No.
No.
Most every rookie quarterback had like 2 or 3 interceptions in the game, not good performances, and they lose. The one case that wasn't the case was Brock Purdy, where he just sustained an injury. So this was the one case of like a quarterback actually going out and playing well in a conference championship game. I mean, I think he's probably has the best rookie quarterback performance in a conference championship game. Maybe that's controversial, but I stand by it. And
I don't think it's that controversial.
it's so disappointing that he broke that trend and the rest of his team is the thing that let him down, which is just like such a bummer. But I mean, hey,
you got that far. You were playing spoiler basically at that point.
Yeah, Commanders, they got way further than they anticipated. They're just happy to be there, and you walk away with like, bummer, but also
you have a future.
You
can say that
such a bright future. You just went to, I mean, again, the last team that was in a somewhat similar situation, 1 didn't have a super team, but 2 was also the 49ers who went to the Super Bowl the following year. So
that's fair.
Pretty good situation, I would say. Yeah, defense, the Commanders kind of just let up super late in that game, though, because that was kind of close for a little bit. And then coming into the second half, it got
ugly.
It did. And and this is how you know it wasn't even like Jayden Daniels, is there were so many fumbles. I don't know that he had one, but there was
I don't think he had any turnovers. If he did, it was just the one.
yeah. But like this is the second time for the Eagles where they forced a fumble on a kick return in the playoffs, which is a very odd stat. Zach Bond is having himself a really good year.
Yes.
Very good year. He forced a fumble and I believe recovered a fumble. From at least from what I saw, which wasn't even the entire game, just because it got so ugly.
Yeah.
But no, Eagles looked scary. I mean, right at the gate, 60-yard touchdown from Saquon. He ended with 3 touchdowns. They ended with 6 total rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So they're just
They were on fire.
they were sticking to their strengths, which was defense and the run game, and they're gonna carry that into the Super Bowl with how are you gonna stop us with this run game, this defense, and I still think a little bit of that pass game needs to at least show up. Maybe not step up, but it does need to show up in the Super Bowl. I don't think they'll be able to rely on Saquon, but God, Saquon with a good O-line. I mean, we've already seen him take a team to the Super Bowl, but how much he can dominate that Super Bowl. And if he can, I'd be so happy if he could come away with Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
That'd be
nice.
so cool for him to be with such a garbage organization for so long and then goes 1 year to a competent team and
Immediately gets a ring.
gets a ring. A Super Bowl MVP would be really cool. And just flourishes, has one of the best running back seasons in however many years. And it would be ridiculous. And I'd love to see it. And that's about the only reason why I'm kind of pulling for the Eagles. A lot of people are pulling for nobody but a meteor.
Yeah, I see that a lot. There's reasons for it, and I understand, but I can't control the weather. Yeah, Hurts and Barkley with so many rushing touchdowns that day. Is it Luvu? I think that's who you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Frankie.
Jumping over the line a couple times, trying to get the tackle. That was kind of funny, just seeing that in the replays and everything. It's just seeing him airborne. It's just funny. I did see AJ Brown and Marshawn Lattimore going at it a little bit, which is good.
They were.
That is something to see. It's nice to see a little bit of a rivalry there.
He's his new Mike Evans.
Mm-hmm. He misses him so much. But, yeah, it was a pretty good game, I'd say, overall for the Eagles. Commanders was good up until the second half. It was just a sloppy game towards the end. That's really all it was. I did see a man got sent to the hospital after falling from a street lamp or something like that. I don't know. You know the thing what Philadelphia does. They grease the street lights and everything just so people can't climb them or whatever, street signs, what do you want to call them.
Yeah.
One of them tried to get up and fell off of it and got sent to the ER or whatever it was. I think that's what I heard. I don't know what the status is on that guy. Hopefully he's okay.
Philly's just crazy.
Yeah, they're a different breed of crazy. So
They are.
I gotta respect it, I guess. So
No. Now, I would be so curious to see if this was not, obviously they didn't have like Jalen Hurts and it wasn't like the tush push Eagles, how many rushing touchdowns Saquon could have had if they didn't rely on the tush push every time they're at the 1 yard line. Because he could have came away with 6 of those touchdowns.
yeah, he very well could have.
Anyway, they just had a kind of dominant game. The highlight, again, for Washington is the fact that you made it this far and Jayden Daniels didn't look like garbage. You have some concerns, obviously, throughout your team, but this was not an expectation. Even by the time you made the playoffs, I don't think this was at all an expectation. You're just happy to be there. So
Yeah, I mean, congrats. You made it to the playoffs. You got that far. Just walk away with that. Walk away with your dignity. So
yeah,
it's really all it is. So Good job, Commanders. We'll see you next year, hopefully. Hopefully you don't have a sophomore slump with Daniels.
That's the hope. But
That's the hope.
I mean, you're keeping Kingsbury as far as I've seen. So
Yeah. Dan Quinn seems to want to stay, so.
yeah.
Well, now we have to begrudgingly go into the AFC Championship.
What can I say? But I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. I mean, I was disappointed for sure. I know that my temper got a little the best of me there for a little bit, but I apologize for anybody I was yelling at. I let it get the best of me, so that was my bad. But 4 in a row will forever haunt the Bills and wide right. Both those phrases will haunt the Bills forever. I got a feel for Buffalo Bills fans because, like, you know, being a Husker fan, we can at least say we were good in this time era. Mm-hmm. Bills can say that, but they don't have any championships to back it up. And I feel bad for them because I wanted them to finally get a ring, or at least get to the Super Bowl for once. But they can't get there because they happen to be just as good at the same time as the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just the unfortunate thing. Allen did play his heart out, and he did congratulate Mahomes. He was very humble about it, actually. He wasn't like throwing a tantrum or anything. He was just saying, hey, go win another. That's all he did. And this is some really good class, I would say, because I know that some people got outraged by certain things, but at the end of the day, it's just a game. So
yeah,
just throwing some classes is a good thing to see.
The this competition, there is obviously a lot that people are very upset about.
Yes.
But we're not gonna focus on the speculations of what was conspiracy, what was a missed call, and all that stuff. I mean, there was stuff that looked like a missed call, and stuff that was like, you know, what is this? But I mean, looking at like the actual hard numbers and facts, and which is I mean, because you mentioned Josh Allen went out there and played his heart out, and you know, you look at the sort of thing of when you look at some of the ways some of the points in that game, he didn't play his best football. He didn't play his best.
He put a lot of effort into it, but it wasn't his best football.
Especially early in that game, like that first drive, he didn't.
2 almost interceptions
on that first drive,
and both of them were from Cook.
Yeah, they both towards Cook, and if it was literally anyone else who had better hands,
that would have been a pick.
But no, even like that last drive too, he overthrew, was it Shakir? Pretty bad.
Shakir, and then
the following play it got tipped at the line, which is, I mean, partially him, partially someone else. I mean, you know, you talk about passing, like level of release and everything, but that's just semantics. Like, it's still a good defensive play, which is so not as much on him. But that missed throw to Shakir is kind of brutal. Obviously the drop from Kincaid, but that's also partially, and
that's just going into the motion of catching that ball. And while it was, I don't think it was a difficult catch, but it was one of those catches where if you weren't like 100% like into that motion, you weren't going to catch that ball.
It's a hard catch to make because one, he had to stop and come back to it. Mm-hmm. It was a moon ball, which is harder to track. I mean, it's almost like trying to catch a punt, which for someone who isn't used to catching punts is not going to be easy.
No, it's not easy.
And again, and it's not even to say that it was a bad throw by Allen. He had a lot of pressure in his face, and he threw it where he could. And he gave him a chance. It's just, it was a well-brought pressure. It didn't get picked up well enough for him to make because if it's picked up a little bit better, that is probably just a touchdown. I mean, the way the coverage went, Kincaid had so much room to run, but they just got enough pressure that he couldn't get the ball to Kincaid safely or super accurately and comfortably.
Yeah.
So
It was something to behold. I mean, what is it? Statistic wise, Mahomes has been to the Super Bowl 5 out of his 6 seasons as a starter, I believe. And a lot of people are speculating on a three-peat incoming, which is very possible now. I will say this though, that while they didn't decide the game, but they definitely influenced certain things. I do believe that Allen did get the first down. I know some people didn't think that. Some people do think that.
A lot of people do.
Yeah, and he was over the line. It's just
It's where the ball is, which is
the thing was that I was watching the Grassi and That's Good Sports collab and their little podcast, and they were talking about how for some reason they based it off of the line judge who saw the back of Allen and not the guy who saw Allen face.
Yeah.
It was a weird thing. It's just one of those things where why, but also you can't change it. So it was just something that they messed up on. The one thing that I will be slightly upset about is just Kelsey not getting a taunting penalty in the flop, but that's just how Kelsey has been operating for the last few years. Just always up in someone's face and trying to draw a flag for the other team, but it's just how it is. So
yeah. I'll talk the controversies before we move on. Well, before we get to controversies, because I want to talk the more Kansas City side of it, because we more talked Buffalo side of it.
Yeah.
The Kansas City side, looking at how they played, and it feels like more of the same, where it feels a little gamey, where it's like it seems like they're trying to game the system, because I mean most of it was a ground game to Kareem Hunt, which did well in the first half, but not as well.
Really
in the second
struggled
half.
in the second half. Yeah.
Pacheco didn't get a lot. Worthy did well in the first half, didn't do as much in the second half. And that second half, it was just felt like Mahomes kind of, utilizing obviously space. He maneuvered
He
the
had
areas
a lot
well.
of time.
He maneuvered the areas well. He ran a decent amount, but also, there were points where people intentionally didn't hit him because trying not to draw a flag. And so it seems there's some points where it seems gamey, and that's a lot of, and it's not rigged, it's not cheating or whatever, but it's just playing with basically loopholes almost.
Yeah, which I don't like.
Instead of just playing
I've not
hardest.
I've not been a fan of the. I think it's fine if a flag gets thrown if they're in the pocket. It's just when they roll out and they become a runner. That's where it becomes a gray area for me. I've just never been a huge fan of some of the flags, but he's playing with the system that's already in place. So he's just playing the game according to the rule book. Do they get bent sometimes? Quite a bit, but he's just doing what he has to do to win the game. So it's not like every play is going to be Chiefs touchdown or whatever it is. It's just he's playing the game correctly. I know some people are like, Mahomes is doing this and this and this. He's trying to draw flags. Well, that's just kind of how the NFL has become. I mean, Mahomes is not the only one trying to draw penalties.
No, but it does seem like they are the kings of it, which is
annoying, but every team does it too. It's just infuriating because Mahomes can get away with it sometimes.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, because you did bring up the controversial fourth down call, obviously, which again, a lot of the cases, because there was that one and also the Worthy catch.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Which were both cases of mostly just the call on the field being the thing that.
Yeah.
Because you had two cases. The fourth down call is tough because you just have a ref that comes down the line, even though they don't have the better view, who I'm guessing was just more confident in their spot, even though they couldn't see it. And the other person on the other side who had a better view should have been able to have a more confident call, but they didn't. And then call on the field is short and they can't overrule it, so it's going to stand. And it's kind of similar with what happens with Xavier Worthy. Call on the field is a is a tie, goes to the offense. And you look back and it's like, should that have been? No, because Worthy is not the one who really came down with it. He only came down with a hand on the ball. But by the time you hit the ground, joint possession.
And that was another thing that people were bringing up was the ball actually hit the ground.
It did hit the ground.
And that's where people were like, it should have been an incompletion.
But the ball can hit the ground. It just depends. If it assists the catches when it is an incompletion, it can hit the ground if it doesn't move and he retains control, which I don't think it did. So I think it was a completion. It just, the way the rules are and with the call on the field is what led it there. It should have been, the rules should have bent it more in the case of the Bills. Was it Benford?
Yes.
The guy who originally caught it had initial possession, and it should have gone to him, but because of the way the rules are, and because it was called a completion instead of an interception on the field, it's going to stand because there's not really anything they can do to overturn it.
Yeah.
So
it's frustrating because my opinion on it, I do think it was an interception. I can see the case for an incompletion, but I do agree with it has to be assisted by the ground in order for that to be ruled that way. I do think it was an interception. I think Worthy just for some reason was able to get the ball like the very, very last second, even though I don't even know if it was Benford. Benford was out first quarter, I think. I think it was Elam or something like that. Anyway.
Elam came in later. I think it was still Benford at that point.
Okay, so whoever it was, I think they had possession. Worthy just got it while they were on the ground. I think that's where he truly got possession.
Well,
it just depends on who you ask.
If you like, because if you look back at the video, it's the Bills corner goes up and he has it, but Worthy still has a hand on the ball, and that is why it wasn't overturned, is because he has a hand on the ball, and then as they're going to the ground, Worthy pulls it in, and that's where it becomes joint possession. But he still has a hand on the ball, which is why it's not like completely, and it's super wishy-washy, and it's one of those things where maybe they look at kind of redefining rules because it's like maybe this is a problem, maybe it's not, but
it's also one of those things where it doesn't happen as often as people think it does. I get PTSD every time I hear the joint possession call because as a Husker fan, now 3 years ago, our glorious, we're best 3-9 team in the nation year, that game against Michigan, there was a joint possession call where we should have gotten the ball, but the refs called it a joint possession because of quite literally the same ruling, I believe, during this Chiefs game. And that's why I had PTSD, because that's why I was like, I don't know how they're going to call this. And lo and behold, they were going to call it the way they did. So joint possession calls have always been kind of iffy, especially if they're like very late possessions. So that's why I just never liked them in the first place. So
I'm surprised when you brought up joint possession and like PTSD. I'm surprised you didn't. Maybe this wouldn't be you as much, but I remember the Packers Seahawks, was it NFC Championship or divisional round, where the Seahawks won on a game-winning touchdown with a joint possession that really wasn't that much.
Oh my gosh,
possession.
yes, it wasn't joint possession.
But it was because the DB came away with it, and it was like clearly the DB, but because he had hands on it, it was joint possession, and the Packers lost off of a Hail Mary or whatever it was.
Yep.
So that's what I thought you were going to go with that. But
I mean, same case applies. It's just different situation.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking you were going to go with. But
no.
I guess moving on from that game specifically and looking just at these two, we kind of talked about the Commanders and their future going forward because their season's done. What does the future look like for them? Theirs, I think, is very bright because, maybe not a Super Bowl next year because you're probably going to have a slight step back, but I think that they have so much to work with here that, you make a couple signings, get some key picks, like shore up some like key spots, and like depth and stuff. But nothing like flashy because you have a lot of the flashy stuff set.
They definitely need more depth, I'd say, on Defense, probably. Maybe the
I feel like the D line could work.
D line
use some
definitely
work.
needs some work. The corners are okay for right now.
I mean,
The safeties.
Lattimore didn't play his best this year,
No,
but I
That
still
was
think
also,
he's a good corner. Sanders still looked really good this year.
That's
I think
why
there's
I'm
some-
wondering if it's just the D line that needs the most focus.
Some
right now.
edges for them would be really helpful, but I think they're in a really good spot. I mean, I would expect to see them back in the playoffs, if not next year, some point in the next 2 years, back in the playoffs and potentially in a situation to make a run.
Yeah.
Equal to
Depending on how
this,
they do, yes.
with some more experience under Daniels too. Like this is going to be so good for him because he's got all this experience now. He's experienced everything except for actually being to a Super Bowl once.
Yeah.
So he's in a really good situation. They're in a great situation going forward. The Bills, this is kind of the question mark. I think a lot of people are expecting them to also be better next year because, the reason why they expect to be worse, you got rid of some of the veterans, some of the guys that had been there as your day one, like as your starters and been doing it. You got rid of some of them, replaced them. You expect to take a step back and you go back to the AFC Championship. Now you have those young guys and you expect them to step forward. But I don't know. I feel like positions like this is where you see, things don't work as well. They didn't, because they're not showing to lose too many pieces. I have to look exactly what they're losing in free agency, but
Maybe a couple
probably just
on the line and a couple in
I'd have
depth
to
core.
look at that in depthly, but I feel like because they have such a young set, like young receivers,
Yes.
and their defense is getting younger. But you look at the fact that like all this that they've built around Josh Allen, you keep your coach, you keep your OC, and most likely it's like, why would they get worse? And it seems like that's usually the years when you can't find a reason for them to get worse, that they don't
do worse. It's because that was the thing. It's just the whole reason for them having a step back with the veterans and everything leaving. And I did think the Bills were still going to make the playoffs. I didn't think they were getting this far. I thought it was going to be
predicted like 9-8 or something.
Yeah,
right?
like we didn't have them for a very high ranking. Like they would still win the East, but we didn't think they'd win more than 11.
I think we had the Dolphins actually in the East. Dolphins or Jets.
Actually, no, we had the Jets barely making the playoffs. I think
it would have been the Dolphins then. We'd have to look back at that, which maybe
I
we
don't
can do
remember.
one of these days. But, yeah, maybe after the Super Bowl that could be something we look at. But
just be like, ugh.
yeah, how wrong were we?
We had some right, some
Yeah, we got some things right,
not
but
so much.
the Bills again. I think now that they're in a situation where nothing should go backwards, or a lot less reason for things to go backward, is more like why expectations to go forward and they don't. I feel like it's the same thing. Well, similar with the Texans. I mean, I had again suspicions with sophomore slump stuff, but other than that, everyone thought they were going to take a big step forward, and then they kind of stayed in the same spot. Maybe got a little bit worse because they
Yes.
just didn't look as good. But I don't know. I'm curious what is going to happen with them because there's so much promise with that team, but last time they did 4 in a row went 0-4 in anything, it was a Super Bowl, and then they haven't been back since, and now they've gone 0-4 against the Chiefs. So curious to see if they ever even see the Chiefs in the playoffs again, just because of trends.
We'll see. And I don't know. Trends don't always get followed, but history does have a funny way of repeating itself. That is very common. I don't know. I think the Bills definitely have a couple more years or so in them, but Allen's going to probably look at eventually moving on if this continues to happen, which sucks because I think Allen being a Buffalo Bill is just ingrained in me so much that I just don't see him leaving unless something weird happens.
I think he probably retires a Bill.
He probably does. I mean, he seems very passionate about that fan base too.
Yeah, there's
doesn't
so
wanna
much
leave there.
there's so much more I think to him than just winning a ring. I think
Keeping
there's a
him
lot
there.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more than that in the money. I think it's, you know, he actually just wants to be there and he wants to bring a ring there, but I think he's more focused on that than actually like, I don't think he's going to be a ring chaser.
No. I mean, he wants to win a ring, but he doesn't. He's kind of in that mentality where if I don't win anything, that's okay, but it'd be really cool if I do. I think that's where he's currently sitting. I mean, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know his situation. But, no. So, tough luck for the Bills. That's all I'm going to say. It's just, I hoped it wasn't going to happen again. Hey, scriptwriters, can we have something new for once? This is boring.
At least if the
just
Eagles
kidding.
win, it'll be tolerable.
Tolerable is a very
I'm just glad
generous
I'm hoping for the Eagles to win and I'm gonna be thankful that I don't live in Philly if it does happen because
yeah.
they can if they're gonna burn down their city, at least I'm not in it.
That's pretty fair. But yeah, that's kind of all we have for the games, really. I mean,
Yeah, no power
Wow.
rankings because
the two teams. And also, wow, I'm so surprised that probably some of the best teams or the best teams in the league went to the Super Bowl. I'm so surprised. I was hoping for underdogs, but I can't have anything good these days. But yeah, now we got another, what do you call it, rerun. We have another rerun,
we have a rerun.
a rerun of things. So, oh well, that's just kind of how it all ends up. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate all the support. Yeah, it kind of sucks that the season's about to end, but hopefully we can have somewhat of a high note. That's a high note. That's the hope, I guess. Something good happened. I don't know, but yeah, thank you all for joining us on this ride, and can't wait to see what happens in the Super Bowl. Not really, but yeah, I want to. I'm still gonna watch it, I guess. I don't know what Will's gonna do, but
We'll see.
all right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you guys in the preview to the Super Bowl. See ya.
Bye.